Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I'm pretty sure I did a story on this when it initially happened, but John said, hey, Steve, here's an update. 7 men have been indicted in that huge jewelry heist from the Bay Area. And, of course, it was the largest in U.S. history, they believe. Lauren Martinez wrote the story for KGO. 7 men from California have been charged in what the Department of Justice calls the largest jewelry heist in history. They estimate the value of what was taken at $100 million. Authorities say back in 2022, the suspects broke into a Brinks semi while it was parked at a Grapevine truck stop. High-end gems and luxury watches were being transported from a jewelry show in San Mateo to Pasadena. According to the indictment, the suspects had scouted the jewelry show and followed the truck 300 miles south. So the Brinks employee said, I didn't pick up on being followed, but I felt at the jewelry show there was someone kind of looking at me weird, like dogging me, staring me right in the eye, just sitting there. Doors were open as we were getting loaded. It just felt weird. Meanwhile, the president of the International Gem and Jewelry Show said he's elated to hear that 3 years later, somebody's been charged. It's the best news I could have ever dreamed of. This thing has really hit us and our whole family really hard. We're so thankful and delighted. Now, of course, the question is, will they find the missing jewelry? Because that would really make it work. So TV station spoke with a legal analyst and former prosecutor who said this is a jewelry heist right out of the movies. And what you have here is a very sophisticated group. 14 exhibitors from the show lost merchandise. One person said it was way over $100 million. I don't have exact figures now with historic gold prices. This is all up another 30% value since the time it was stolen. We're just anxiously awaiting what might have been recovered, but exactly how much was stolen kind of leads to a bit of a debate because some of the jewelers who lost their inventory have been filing lawsuits against Brinks, and Brinks is defending themselves and counterclaiming by saying that the jewelers all signed contracts, and the contracts said you've got to say how much your merchandise is worth, and according to the contracts, the contractual value of what was being transported was $6.45 million, at least whatever would have been insured or part of this. So Brinks will argue that the contractual value of these goods is what they're going to pay, not what the value these jewelers are saying now. Several of the suspects are also accused of stealing over $200,000 worth of Samsung electronics and $57,000 worth of Apple AirTags in the months before the jewelry heist. It's unclear, of course, if those things were involved in this heist or not, or that's just simply something thrown in for trivia's sake. But they believe, found 7 people who were involved in this. And as noted, it happened in 2022, so it took them a while to do it. But the amount of valuables here makes it worthwhile, and the Justice Department is looking into it. You might wonder why that would be. Why not California? Well, it is, of course, trucking. And trucks are on the roads and the highways, and trucks are often involved in interstate commerce. And even though these jewels didn't leave the state, it's still interstate commerce in the sense that it's trucking. And so there are a lot of laws out there. Just ask the truck drivers in the audience. I see you. I know you're out there. I get a lot of comments from people who drive trucks. And the regulations that they put up with and have to deal with, they know they're regulated, but also they're overseen by the feds. And so if somebody's going to rob a truck, guess what? The same people investigating that are the same people investigating bank robberies or kidnappings, things of that nature. So it is a very, very serious thing. But this gets us back to, we've talked before about people who send things via mail or UPS. We've talked about the guitars and the other things that have disappeared while being shipped. And of course, when you go to mail something or ship something that is not an envelope with a letter in it, they'll often ask you, do you want to insure this? Do you want to insure this? And many things come with a certain amount of insurance to begin with. So a package with UPS has some minimum amount of insurance on it when you ship it. And if you mail something that's a certain kind of package through the U.S. Postal Service, likewise, that'll have some form of insurance on it, I believe, as well as a threshold. But if it's more valuable than that, you gotta pay. I talked about this before. I did an entire video on things that I've encountered while working with the U.S. Postal Service. And I once brought in a box of books to be shipped, and I was shipping them media mail. And media mail has different rules regarding how it's being shipped, and it's less expensive. And I was shipping a box of books, of my own books, at a post office. And I was going to ship them, and I asked the woman specifically about insurance, and she goes, "You don't need insurance." She actually said that. You don't need insurance. And now, of course, I should know as an attorney that when someone tells you that, how does she know? They sell insurance for a reason. I should have bought the insurance. So I got a box that showed up. I was shipping them to myself. I had traveled someplace to do a book signing, and I had an extra box of books left over. And rather than carrying them on board the plane, I shipped them back, media mail. And it would have been a lot easier and cheaper if they'd shown up. They didn't show up. What showed up was an empty box. And I went to pick the box up and almost threw my back out because there's nothing in it. And the mailman had brought this box, put it down in front of my door, and walked away. And so I picked the box up. It's clearly empty, but it's sealed. And it actually, I'm not making this up, it actually had a stamp on it that said, "Opened for inspection." And they tell you that. When you ship stuff media mail, they've got the right to open it up to make sure it's media mail. And I've had other things opened up for inspection. And then there was another stamp on it that said, "Contents missing when received." So one end opened the box up and apparently removed all the books. Then they closed the box with the books not in there. And then they shipped the empty box to me. And the post office gets this empty box. It's obviously empty. There's nothing in there. So they stamped it empty when received. What happened to my books? They were being inspected. Did they not pass inspection? They were in fact books. But the point is that I could have bought insurance on that. And I actually went to the post office, and I'm curious, when you're buying insurance, does it cover you guys doing stuff intentionally? Like you guys opening up my box, emptying the books out? And the guy goes, "Yeah, that would have covered that." I said, I don't know why, but I always thought that insurance covered things like negligence and so on. And the guy goes, "Well, it's probably some negligence involved because they didn't put the books back in the box, And I'm like, okay. But I lost out. I could have bought insurance, and I didn't. And I don't think media mail has a threshold that they pay because that's one of the points of media mail. It's cheaper. So if you are a jeweler, I'm just talking in generalities here. If you are a jeweler and you are going to ship $10 million worth of diamonds via some shipping company, and they say, "We will insure you up to a certain amount, but if you want to cover it up to here, you have to pay for that." They, I'm sure, ask that question and say, "Do you want to pay for this?" And the question is, did people take out insurance to cover the full value? Because, and again, I'm not saying any of this happened here, but I've seen stories before where someone's house burns down and they say, "Oh, along with the contents of the house, I had 3 Picassos, a Van Gogh, and a Rodin sculpture," which somehow got burned also. And of course, that's why insurance companies say you've got to have a rider for special items they might want to check before you file a claim. But likewise, you can imagine that a jeweler could hand over a box about this big and say, "There you go, that's a box," right? What's inside of it? Could be $1,000, could be $10,000. It could be $1 million if it's jewelry and it's the right kind of jewelry. And so there is an interesting argument to be made here that these shipments, underlying them all, are contracts, written contracts. And I know that the big companies have been around for more than a couple of years, have got really, really well-written contracts drafted by generations of attorneys with all kinds of protections built in to protect the shipper because they're the ones drafting the contract. And so it's going to say on there, what are you shipping? What's it valued at? And would you like to buy insurance to cover anything above a certain amount? So that'll all shake out in court, but the interesting thing is they caught 7 people. 7 people, but we don't know if they've recovered any of the jewels. And this is one of those things I was thinking about. You understand that if you look at the movies, especially in the 50s and 60s, there's a whole genre of movies about jewel thieves. And there almost became a thing where jewel thieves were like the hot, if you have a story and you want to have a hot storyline, you have a jewel thief, okay? And I was wondering, why are jewel thieves so elevated in our minds compared to, like, I don't know, street thugs, okay? And the reason is that, number one, most of us don't have millions of dollars in jewelry. So a jewel thief is usually, at least in the movies, hitting somebody who's rich. So it's kind of like, it's not going to hurt him the same way it's going to hurt a guy who's living paycheck to paycheck if his wallet gets stolen, right? So the jewel thief isn't really as bad as somebody else. But also, there's something just sexy about the fact that who wears the jewels? Oh, some rich woman, she's wearing these jewels and the jewel thief stole them, and game of cat and mouse and a cat burglar stealing jewels. And the weird thing is that jewels, generally speaking, aren't a good thing to be stealing. And again, I'm not giving advice here for future thieves. I'm simply pointing out, in the grand scheme of things, would you rather steal $1,000 in cash, $1,000 worth of gold, or $1,000 of rough-cut, unmounted diamonds? And I'll tell you right now that the cash, of course, is king. Gold, you still got to take it to somebody who will buy it from you for cash, and there always are transaction costs. And when it gets to jewels, guess what? Number one, you got to find somebody who will buy them from you without going, gee, I wonder if these are all stolen. But number two, what's the transaction cost of cashing out jewels, turning jewels into cash? I suspect that the amount that you lose in that transaction is greater percentage-wise than what you get with gold. And of course, cash is cash. You don't need to do anything other than launder it maybe. But again, I'm not giving advice here. I'm simply pointing out that jewel thieves, who are so revered as characters in movies, in reality have got a kind of a difficult job ahead of them once they got the jewels. So the question is, if they recover any of them, or if not, if they can track them down, find out where they went, and then, of course, who knows if they can recover them. So crazy story, but John, thanks for sending that. There's litigation taking place, but 7 men have been indicted in a $100 million jewelry heist from the Bay Area to Southern California, the largest in U.S. history. KGO published that. Lauren Martinez wrote it. Questions or comments, put them below. Otherwise, talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Well begun is half done.